Yeah, you bite your arm, my arm. I'm going to pull back, young lady. No pets for you. All right. Got that going. You're going to have to send it again. Okay. Oh. Did that work? Oh. Okay. Alex, did you say something? If it was very quiet. I... I still have, I still have Alex's PNG from when we were working on it. So it's the little finger. All right. Thank you all for the flex. Had a much easier day at work today. Oh, I need to grab something real quick. Let me find my notebook. Okay. Make sure I have a pen. Of course not, because that would be too easy. Alrighty. Wonderful. Good timing. Let's see here. Just to double check, is everyone good for next Monday? Okay. Awesome. Possum. Also, just a reminder, don't forget to do your homework. I mean, or you could forget. You just won't miss out on the awesome chance at a magical item for your character. Oh, no. It's you have until the whole homework situation. I wasn't even calling you out, babe. It's to the group, so you don't have to take it personally. This is why I was addressing the group, not you or anyone individually. So the deadline for homework will always be the Monday following after the 10th question. And then we'll restart back to 1 after we issue the items. So, yeah. All right. Any questions before we begin on last week's session? Yes. Yes. So any D20 roll, um, it's basically the same thing as just general inspiration for D&D, where if you roll a for ability check or an attack roll, so basically any roll that requires you to roll a D20, and before I tell you the result, if you wish to use inspiration, you may re-roll that D20. You don't get to use inspiration after you know if you've passed or failed, or if you failed, or yeah. And unlike regular inspiration, it expires at the end of the session. Yeah, use it or lose it. I totally admit that, there will be potential sessions where maybe you don't roll just because of the dynamic nature of like I try to balance like actual RP versus combat RP. So there are chances for that to happen, but there could be other situations I might award it back. But generally speaking, it's use it or lose it, unless otherwise noted. Sound good? Awesome. Any other questions? All right. Creature. Our resident. Well, actually, no. I think it was Legion. Did you say the recap last time? No. It was Leah. Sorry. Let me just go through the entire roster of people. Gotcha. Well, let me rephrase then. Would somebody like to volunteer to recap last session? Okay. Take it away. Mm-hmm. Is it going to derail us or is it related? Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Let's get on track and someone go ahead and give the recap. few things. The crystal is not heart shaped; it is the size of a heart. So, like, think of like an anatomical heart, like that size, not like what you think from like a. No, I said the size of a heart. All good. This is why I have my players usually try and recap so I can catch if there's anything that I did not communicate effectively. Yes. Hmm. Which fledgling, it was a term of endearment specifically for your group. You, n- neither one of you have heard her reference the name Brahm or the word Brahm at all. It does not ring any bells. No history check is going to bring that up unless, like, I don't know, you randomly ran across a Brahm in a pub, or you went to one like with the equivalent of preschool. But I will tell you, but in Brahm in association with Barrows does not register any sort of inkling or memory. I will ask, do you guys remember the charges that have been brought forth before her? Okay. Mm-hmm. This'll go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna point out four things. One of which is the writ, basically the fantasy of equivalent of a warrant, is exactly that. It was written for the 30th of Divin, which is a couple months prior to the current day. So this investigation has been going for a while. And then she's being charged with conspiracy to use arcane magic with malice and unauthorized possession of arcane artifacts. Um, so those two charges. And then in the writ, it says by redacted. So Adrius would know because of your background that by redacted means they have redacted the complainant. So whoever was the original source that kickstarted this, they're protecting that identity. Um, and I think I counted each each charge as its own thing. So the date, the two charges, and redacted are kind of the important things that stands out from this writ of seizure for Scarlett Barlow. Um, and then I don't think that Adrius would personally know or have run across Leokin Ashrest, who's the corporal for the high crimes division of the arcane inspections division. But we can kind of leave that up to you if you want. I mean, your father and your family are political in nature, so perhaps there is some history there. Just depends on how you want to play it. Um, the level in which we're talking, I don't think so. So in my head, Adrius is like, to kind of equivalent to like modern times, the arcane inspection division is like federal, and his experience is like local sheriffs essentially. So any like super like, oh, someone stole a pair of shoes, Adrius, you're good at this, you need experience, go investigate who was the thief, etc. um let's see, was there anything else that I wanted to, I think it was the writ I wanted to bring up. um Wanted to bring up Brahm as a reminder, And yeah, we ended the session with your characters. It's the end of the day. And each session, I'm going to make a note of what day it is so you guys can kind of keep track because I personally think it's fun. So it is currently the evening of the 18th of Transmutia and the 7th year of Paylor, 490. It's been a few days since we've started this campaign. Everything that's happened today is pretty much your party has come together. Your party did the naming ceremony that kind of wrapped up the fellowship trials. You got teleported back to the university, had a few hours at your dorms, went to the feast hall, was there for less than an hour before Professor Barrows was arrested. Then you guys, in like the 10-minute aftermath of that event, decided to go to her office. And everything investigating her office probably took less than an hour. So currently it is probably like 7 or 8 in the evening. And the days are getting longer. The next season that is coming is summer, but we're still kind of middle of spring. Your group kind of putting your heads together, feeling strong feelings for your mentor, if only just because you've bonded with her in these last few years. She's been every definition of a mentor, been through your transition period from the variety of different backgrounds that you all have to this college, whether you're coming from the country to the city, whether you're just dealing with different populations, different cultures. She's been kind of that bridge and that ear for you to talk to and a shoulder to lean on in these times before, as your classes went on, she designated each of the different units according to who she saw would fit well together. And she specifically picked you four to come together. And so you have. And in the aftermath of the investigation of her office, Adrius spoke up about potentially speaking to someone he knows that could maybe help in everything that's going on, or at least helping to like enlighten you in the process that's about to happen to Barrows. I'm going to go ahead and switch us to the Surrendale map. So currently, you guys are in the eastern portion of the university district. You folks would know that Adrius, his family, hails from the inner living ward, which houses all the older houses, all of the original settlers of Surrendale. And essentially like old money or even new money who are able to move in and maybe purchase some dilapidated mansions or property. Living is definitely a little bit more spacious here, a little bit more laid out. We're talking high hedges. A lot of the current style of the city is kind of in a Victorian era, very much like the photo that we started on. And you all, depending on how much Adrius has shared, you would have gathered that Adrius comes from old money, old family. Meaning at least his family has been well established back towards his grandfather, I would say, be kind of the surface information. Adrius, what other information would you have shared with your group in the past few years as they've gotten to know you? And who's the name of your butler? Okay. Okay. Um, yes. So speaking to politics a little bit here in Surrendale. So there is a city council of Surrendale, and his father, Aberforth, is currently the representative of the inner living ward for the council. And um, the the elections go approximately every 4 years, and for as long as living memory, at least back until like he was younger, Aberforth has been the representative for the inner living ward. So they're responsible for speaking up for the various groups, maybe approaching the different religious conclaves if there's any issues that arise. They're responsible for making sure the local laws throughout the city that need to be abided by and protected and enforced by the local guard. And if there's any issues that are more domestic, they are the kind of the ones that help navigate that. They're still judicial proceedings. They don't really oversee any court processes. Those are separate branches. But yeah, his father would be pretty well known in that respect. Um, and would you say that you've maybe spoken more about Dreyfus than you have your father? Okay. 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 Um, it's gonna take. Let's see. Let me look at my map here. Excuse me. You all would, in this late evening, where you're just starting to realize that the days are getting longer, as just a bit to go when you guys were studying for one of your more recent finals, it got dark pretty early, and you just almost felt like you were living in darkness. But as you're making way, probably at a brisker pace than what you're used to, um, your party leaves the university district and goes through a pretty ornate gate that they do keep open. A lot of these gates are more ornate, especially on the inner city. They are used for defense, but they have not been used for defense in not in your generation's history. But should the need arise, they will they will shut, they will close. There's even known to be huge shields that essentially cover the sky to act as an aerial shield. Excuse me. And as your group passes through the gate between the university district to the temple district, it is one that they they purposely created the temple district to be sort of a maze. There is not one direct pathway to the next set of gates. Um, it was done so on purpose to increase um, the one, to confuse any folk that were had nefarious means into the city, to confuse them, and just defensive wise make it so that they can't get to the heart of the city faster. But two, to just naturally expose folk to different religions found throughout the city, to different services that might be able to be provided for. um it's interesting. There are hundreds of different temples. There are more of the major gods are closer to the center of Surrendale. They do still have some temples out here, but for the most part, they really try not to outshine the other temples, as there's plenty of other gods for other cultures, minor or major, that are represented here. Um, and it takes, I would say, about an hour or so Adrius, you know how to navigate these temples well. You probably just kind of naturally fall into a footpath that you've gone many a time, whether it be just for natural business, whether it be for going for a late night stroll. Um, you're easily able to navigate through the temple district before you get to the gold doors that lead to the inner living ward. Now, in between this hour and a half kind of walk, is there anything that you think your characters would be doing within the temple district? Do you want to look around? Do you want to approach anything? Ask me any questions? Roll, mhm. Roll me a D100. 1 to 10, your temple is nearby. Anything more than that, and it's not located on this little path, walking path. As I stumble over my words. I am no fool. Hello, Churchy. Okay. You did it right. Good job. You rolled a 65. So off in the distance, maybe towards where the sun is just now setting, you see familiar peaks of other temples. It would probably take a little bit of a jaunt for you to go off this beaten path, but it does feel like home. Sometimes it feels like each couple of blocks are kind of copy pasted, but every once in a while, you know, from having grown up here, how to look for those subtle differences, how to look for those telltale signs. Um, there are, you know, just like any facet of humanoid nature, there's always going to be a nefarious facet, and not all gods are true good. There are trickster gods. So there are just these little subtle differences that you see throughout illusionary magic, sireness magic, if you will. But you just kind of chuckle to yourself, and probably for the first time in about a day or so, walking through this pathway, you do feel, despite everything going on, Aiden, you're starting to feel a little bit more relaxed, being kind of in your home environment. And yeah. Make a perception check. What'd you get? Okay. Your mind is just going a mile a minute. You're feeling slightly overwhelmed. You've only really, like we talked about before, dealt with like local crime, nefarious acts of that nature. You've not, this feels like major leagues to you. Your brain is going a mile a minute. You want to talk to Drafe as soon as you can. Um, there's probably a few times that you kind of check yourself as you realize you need to slow down a little bit, and you look over your shoulder and you see Aiden kind of glancing off in the distance, and you remember you're not alone, you're with a group. You have to act as such. You are not an independent investigator. You have a group to care for as well. But you take that into consideration, and you take a second to kind of look around. You don't see anything that really sticks out to you, but your friend's by your side, and you can kind of feel that anxiety subside a little bit, and you continue your pace. Still not as rushed, but still with purpose. Time continues. You walk through the golden gates into the inner living ward, and from there, it's but a 10 or so minute walk to get to the excuse me, the Eindrevale estate. Um, when you approach the estate, everyone, you see a lot of different mansions in this area have various lights lit on the outside. Very clearly, there are folk who are at home um, burning away the oil on various different projects or just catching up with their family after a long day of work. Um, whether it be like the servants who are very paid well, who have really good relationships with their employers. You get a sense that this area, specifically within the inner living ward, is definitely old money. There are hedges here that are older than you. There are cobblestones that you can look down and clearly see different stones of recent replacement, but very well kept up. There are sidewalks here. Despite how old the city is, the road is still wide enough for basic carts to go by with no issue. There are still some folk that are making their way to and from whatever shifts that they're going to. Not everyone works during the day. There are magical occupations that require workers at night, and it's not seen as the worst part of the night. If anything, a lot of folk tend to, prefer to work at night, if only because they can actually get stuff done, not be bothered during the folk that are awake during the daytime. And then when you turn a corner and you begin to approach a different estate, you can see an iron nameplate over a gate that clearly states Eindrevale. The lights aren't on in this home. The hedges are a little bit more overgrown. It's kind of a juxtaposition in comparison to what Adrius has shared with you folk. Someone who is the city council representative has kind of a dilapidated mansion, but one that is still very nice. It almost seems like surface level if you just take some time to trim back the hedges. You take some time to clean the windows. There is but two lights that you can clearly see from behind the gate, but onto the property. One on the first floor and one clearly on the second floor. And it is a fine, for lack of a better term, mansion. It is a mansion. Anyone who hasn't been on mansionist grounds, it kind of takes your breath away. But you have reached the gates of Eindrevale Estate. You walk forward. The gate seems to kind of creak open upon arrival. Adrius, you're pretty used to this. The gate is actually enchanted to do so with certain approved folk, especially those with Eindrevale blood. The gate naturally opens for you. And there is a clear pathway to the front door of your previous home. No knock, just walking right into the estate. Okay. You walk in and you hear the piano playing. You know that the piano was a favorite pastime of Dreyfus, and it can be found in a sitting room at the the north-south part of the mansion here, if you would like to make your way there. Do you say anything to your party mates, or you walk in kind of expecting them to follow you? Okay. Mm-hmm. And for those of you that have been following Adrius, do you just follow him right in? Okay. Make a perception check. Oh. Oh, the curse of the nat 20 in the DM. Okay. Adrius seemed to have picked up his pace for that last half block as he was approaching the estate. And he barely even waited for the gate to open before he continued forth. And Eliana and Aiden followed suit after. Rowan, ever since your party entered the inner living ward, you couldn't help but feel like the hairs on the back of your neck were standing. Every once in a while, you would look behind you, and almost like out of your periphery, you could have sworn like every time you guys rounded a corner, you saw somebody tucked behind a corner. Even when you thought it was impossible for someone to tuck behind a corner like a lamppost, like there was nothing else for them to hide behind, it almost seemed like a shadow just like became the lamppost. With that natural 20, you do get the sense that there is an entity that is quite literally shadowing your group. And when you enter the property, you something interesting happens. You cross the threshold of the property, and you feel protected. It it's a sense of there's specific magic, especially like charm magic, that you can kind of naturally sense when it's like, think of like a light switch, it's on and it's off. Um, you just get that weird like Spider-Man tingly sense. You look down and you look up at the wrought iron gates, and it makes sense. You see runes of protective magic for those that cross onto this land. Um, you look back towards the mansion, and you see the door to the mansion is already open. Adrius has already walked in, and Aiden is kind of nudging Eliana to walk in herself. Excuse me. Eliana, do you walk across the threshold? Okay. It's very vastly different, and it almost feels like this massive of a house. It's kept minimally. There's no sconces in the hallway as you cross, but you can see clearly There are carpets on the wooden ground. Everything seems to be dim. There are, especially in this hallway, there's no natural light except for the doorway that you just walked through. Um, you do see kind of coming around the corner quite easily. Adrius seems to be beelining it to an already kind of crookedly open door, not crookedly, a cracked open door that has some warm light spilling, and you can hear the sounds of a soft piano playing in the distance. Do you make your way towards that room? Okay. Aiden, do you keep up? All right. Rowan, you might have to jaunt a little bit, but do you enter the mansion? Always watching. Hmm. Exactly. All right. Do you want to stand on the threshold of the? Okay, you're going in. Awesome. Okay. Do you close the door behind you? Okay. Um, you close the door, and whatever ambient sounds that you were hearing from the city beyond are now completely muffled. This mansion is really well built. There is insulation that have stood the test of time, but you still can't help but feel there's a little bit of a chill up your spine as you look around and you see just almost like remnants of an era gone by where there was clearly love of this house, but it's faded with time. And Adrius, as you enter, you see a human man, middle aged, currently humming to himself as he's playing the piano in a sultry, not sultry, in a soft, forlorn, but hopeful tone, completely just absorbed in the music. He's kind of swaying back and forth. He's got a peppered mustache. He's got a little bit of a receding hairline. Wearing a butler's suit, finely pressed and starched. And he doesn't seem to hear you as you enter the room. Go ahead and give me a performance check. And I'll say with advantage because I would say you've played with him since you were a child. You probably recognize this tune. And yes, the music that you guys are listening to, that's the music that he's currently playing. Okay, you stumble. You stumble a few. You can feel him kind of, yeah, it's been a while. You can feel him kind of smile at you, happy to see you. Kind of, he looks you kind of up and down, waist up, and he leans into you and almost like a fatherly gesture. And you two begin to play, and the music begins to swell into this room. The light that's coming from the fireplace almost seems to naturally grow brighter. The rest of the party, do you guys stay in the doorway? Do you want to enter the room? What would you like to do seeing this scene before you? It's mostly standing. It seems that there's a chessboard here in the corner in front of a bookcase. You can totally turn one of the chairs around to sit in. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. And Ileana, apologies, where would you be? Okay. Adris, go ahead and give me a wisdom check for me, please. Yes. Okay. It's been a really long time since you have heard this tune. Dreyfus doesn't bust it out every so often. And you realize it was something he used to play to comfort you. Starting on the anniversary of your sister going missing. And you stumble through a couple of chords. He kind of leans against you. He continues playing. How is school going, my boy? Did you fail a test? He stops playing for half a beat and then continues. Make an insight check. There's at the mention of Barrows and arrested. He didn't necessarily stop, like even you saying something happened at the school he didn't really bat an eye, but he stopped when you mentioned the name Barrows. And then you realize at one point when you first started school and you wrote a letter to Dreyfus speaking of your different professors, he actually pointed you and directed you to reach out to Barrows, as she was a former colleague and friend. And he continues playing. What happened? He glances at the writ, stops playing completely. He grabs a piece of paper, and you guys watch as he actually takes out, pocketed in one of his breast pockets, is a pair of spectacles on a chain. He puts it on his nose and he starts reading it. And he looks down at you, and Dreyfus stands about, he's a pretty tall guy, so he's about half a head taller than Adrius when they're sitting. Would you like some tea? Let us convene in the sitting room. And he turns, and for the first time he sees Aiden and Eliana and Rowan. He goes, "Oh, you should have mentioned you brought company. Good evening, all." You see him softly smile at you, Adrius, as you have never really brought anyone home, let alone 3 people. Then he looks at the 3 of them and he goes, "What is your favorite kind of tea?" It is, yes. I take it you are Aiden. He kind of chuckles and looks at Adrius. You have not laxed on your descriptions of your friends. And you must be Eliana. What kind of tea would you like, my dear? Should have guessed. And you young man in the doorway, Rowan. I know the exact drink. He stands and he softly closes the case around the keys to the piano. Adrius, please escort your friends to the sitting room. I will be with you all in about 10 minutes. And he makes his way down the hallway, smiling at Eliana and Rowan as he passes them. And he passes through a couple of doors, and you guys start to hear kind of the clinking and clanging of someone working in a kitchen. Adrius, you would know the sitting room is the room that is directly next to it. There is a door located here or in the hallway. All right. You open the door, and just as any ancient old money mansion would have, there's an enchanted fireplace that comes to life when the doors are opened, clearly sensing the need for hospitality and the warmth to provide it for. There are a couple of sconces that light themselves on the exterior part. This room is mostly for folks who are visiting the family, or if you all were to have board games or anything in the evening, this is what this room was used for. It was very much more utilized when you were younger, Adrius, not so much as an adult, unless your father was expecting someone extremely important. There are a couple of trophies of various creatures that you probably have been the one to hunt throughout the years. Perhaps your first deer that you hunted, or mountain lion. But the room is yours for your group to settle in, and you guys have a couple moments alone before Dreyfus is to make his return. There's curtains you can definitely that were already kind of naturally open. You can shut them entirely, and they are blackout curtains. Okay. Okay. Rowan, Ileana, Aiden. Okay. Now, there's a little bit of a narrative beat here. If there's anything that your group wishes to speak about, unless you just want to kind of comfortably sit for the next couple of minutes while Dreyfus gets the drinks ready for you folks. Mm. Very good. Um, Rowan, Aiden, and Eliana, I'm going to have you guys go ahead and make a perception check for me, please. Yep. That's a balance and a half. A nat 20 to a nat 1. Are you kidding me? That's funny. What's your passive? For Rowan. Okay. Eliana, what's your passive? Creature. Okay. And Eden? On the left side of your sheet, underneath the big scores above the languages proficiencies, there should be passive perception. Wow. All y'all got 12. 12 across the board. Pictured above, or like on the ledge of the fireplace, there are a couple of photos, and they are animated paintings, it seems. The three of you just kind of waiting over the next few minutes. You can notice that one seems to be some sort of family portrait. One is of Adrius proudly, like, essentially, I would say, like, his graduation day of basic school, so like a high school equivalent, in his gear. And there's another smaller framed one that you can't really tell who's pictured on it, as there is seemingly a gray, like a dark gray veil over the frame. With that perception, you wouldn't necessarily, you know that there's somebody in the picture, but you can't really make out any other details than that it's seemingly something. And I would say, based on all of your respective backgrounds, you would know at the very basic that usually when veils are placed upon portraits or anything, it's usually a sign of mourning. Couple more minutes go by and you start hearing the clinks of some sort of tray, and the doors to the sitting room open naturally, and Dreyfus, with like a little twitch of his nose, causes the doors to close behind him, and he makes his way, and he tilts his head at the box now sitting on the coffee table as he places the tray there. And one by one, he takes everybody's respective drinks to them, going around and asking, Eliana, milk or sugar? Or sorry, how much milk and how much sugar? Creature, if you're talking, you might be muted. Okay. He does like a little cube of sugar. Adrius, he goes to you and he's like, I know what you need. How does Adrius take his tea? Okay. Doesn't do any milk or sugar. Aiden, he walks over. Milk and sugar. Bloop, bloop. He hands you the cup. Walks over to Rowan. This is I was not going to actually give you any of the sugar or the milk, as this is a mulled cider. He hands it towards you. He nods and takes the seat closest to Adrius. Sips his own tea, kind of settles in, crosses his leg, and Takes out the writ, puts on his spectacles again, looks at this, sets the writ facing you, Adrius, on the table next to you. And you can see the look on Dreyfus's face is very one of which he is like, he's got like his mentor mask on right now. What are your thoughts? Aiden, make a wisdom saving throw. There's a wisdom save box above the skills in the middle of the page. To the right of the big ability score. It says wisdom save. Yeah. When the box opens, nothing happens for you. But you can't help but remember that first initial feeling that you felt in the cave as you look upon these two crystals. The liquid seems to not wholly be settling. Dreyfus looks upon it, leans forward, looks between Adrius and Aiden. Are there three crystals, or what happened to the crystal you gave to her? Are one of these crystals here the one that you gave her? Close the box, Adrius. Things that come in leaden boxes never bear goodwill. She had them in there for a reason. Did you say where you found this box? You see, as Dreyfus kind of chuckles to himself, she always loved to switch up where those false cabinets would be. That's very bearers of her. He looks at you, kind of assessing you. I know many things about daggers and wings and when they intersect each other. Depends on the context. He looks at Adrius. Describe further the symbol that you saw. Mm-hmm. The Crimson Dominion. This was in Barrow's office. I ask again, Adrius, what are your thoughts, knowing all the information before you? I offer an alternative version. Dreyfus looks at Aiden, Rowan, Eliana, and Adrius. What do you know of the Crimson Dominion? He looks at Rowan. Of course. Make an insight check. He's hard to read, as he says, me personally, I know the name of Brahm. I don't know. I'm not associated with any Brahm. Why do you ask? Hmm. Prom. Prom. And it's at this point you guys start hearing the creaking of floorboards above and footsteps that seem not like they're running, but they they sound like someone who is comfortable within the space, making their way towards the stairwell. And you easily hear, Dreyfus! Dreyfus, where are you, old man? I need you. Dreyfus? And he looks towards Adrius. And Adrius, you recognize the voice to be of your father, Aberforth. He's going to want to see you if you are here. Okay. I'll say make either a sleight of hand or an investigation with advantage because it's where you grew up. Which type are you gonna roll? Okay. 15. Okay. Um you know of the desk behind you. There is a false bottom in the bottom right of the drawer. You share a look with Adrius. He looks towards the desk and he gives you a nod. He's like, "My apologies, everyone. I need to go speak with Aberforth, Adrius's father, and I'm sure he will make his way here shortly." He kind of looks at you guys and he goes, "Brace yourself. He means well. I think." He kind of says under his breath, and he exits the room. Adrius, you're able to get up and go and hide the box in the false bottom of that desk. Hurriedly back to your place on the chair. You hear low voices in the hallway at this point. One is clearly Dreyfus, the other is the person who was calling for Dreyfus. Based just on the intonation, you can tell it's kind of a heated exchange. Before the door suddenly slams open, and before you all is... Let me grab his picture real quick. A man in his early to mid 50s. Very clearly, you can tell by his skin coloring, just signs of stress, of potentially decades worth of stress. He's wearing a high collared outfit, a gray button up with a black overcoat with a white triangle pocket scarf, and he's got gold embroidery up and down his sleeves. You can see similarities between Adrius and Aberforth Ironderville as he enters into the room. Kind of quickly scans the room. He goes, "Adrius, you should have let me know that you were going to be stopping by." He walks in, sees the others. "And who are these folk?" Are you going to introduce them, or do I have to ask myself? Pleasure. Well, your service is good. Your service is commendable to the realm. We appreciate your duty as wardens, and I wish you all the best in your studies to graduate. I take it you were successful in your companionship, Adrius. Who did you bond with? Strong name. Of what breed? He just kind of nods, his lips a thin line. He hasn't fully entered the room, by the way. He doesn't seem to be making a motion to sit. Dreyfus is kind of at attention behind him. And he seems to remember Dreyfus is standing behind him. All right, Dreyfus. You have your orders. I'll leave you all to it. Adrius, next time, a heads up. Good evening, all. He nods to the rest of you, and he takes exit, not even waiting for you to respond. And you hear him slowly going upstairs, the creak of the floorboards, and a door closing shut. Dreyfus enters the room, a little bit more frazzled, he seems. Closes the door behind him and sits. Make an insight check, please. Whatever has happened in the last few minutes, he seems a little bit more on edge. But a practiced person who knows that he is being watched, or he is ever watchful, you can see his jaw clenching a little bit as he looks towards Adrius. You can see that there's like a familial concern on his face. It's only been a few hours that Barros has been arrested, is this correct? I doubt you know, but I will ask anyway. Do you know if anyone from the university sent a representative? He seems to contemplate for a couple seconds. The Crimson Dominion are not to be taken lightly. For lack of a better term, they are the black market within Surrendale, and they rule it as such. They deal in artifacts, arcane and divine. I did not think Barrows would align with them in any capacity. I've known Barrow since we were children. This is not in her nature. Dreyfus taps his nose and points at you, Eliana. That is exactly what I think. His jaw clenches. The Crimson Dominion, Adrius. The box opens. Mm-hmm. Okay. Eliana. Eliana, the weight of this crystal within your hand, it's maybe over a pound of a weight. It's like, think of like a paperweight for your desk. It's about that. The fluid inside almost seems to have a life of its own. It doesn't slosh by what you would view as gravitational forces, but it does seem to split between like leaning towards the heat of the fire and the heat of your body. Adrius, which crystal would you have grabbed? Would you have grabbed the heart-sized one, or the one that was just a little bit smaller, which is the original one from the forest? Okay. Aiden, I need another wisdom check, or wisdom save, please. Okay. Aiden, you begin to hear those same whispers. The light in this room begin to darken a little bit, and you just hear Eliana, this crystal is sitting in your hand. What do you do? You can feel any intent. Make an Arcana check. You're not able to gather an alignment per se or a motive from this crystal in your hand. However, you do remember there are certain magics as you're looking at this crystal that allow you insight, whether it be to identify it, the properties of it, or even the lore, depending on how much you're willing to pay or those that you seek out. It's an interesting spell or route to go, as it is arcane in nature, and more often than not, priest pray rather than seek out someone who can just identify it. But scrolls do exist that you could potentially purchase. With that, also high level of a roll, you do recall that there are items that are potentially sentient that can be enchanted. Like all your recent classes on basic magic and types of different magic, and things that can be imbued, whether it be sentient or have practical purposes, kind of just start rolling through your head. Imagine the meme where there's like a bunch of numbers in front of the lady's face as you're kind of looking at this. Meanwhile, across the room, as you're kind of just turning, still within the handkerchief, but still looking, you see in your periphery Aiden with his hands over his ears. Mm-hmm. It's not that you don't hear Eliana, it's just the voices stop the second the crystal's put within the lead box. Adrius, as all of this is going on, Dreyfus looks torn. His finger seems to be tapping on the armchair of the chair he's sitting in. It's a very serious look, one that you don't typically see. He seems to always try and be the light in your life, knowing how much you've been through. And you... I know we don't speak often of that time, but... Do you remember how I entered into your life, Adrius? How I came to work for your family? Adrius, I didn't start out as a butler for your family. I started out being hired by your father to find your sister. And when I failed that task and I could not locate her, your father threw me a boon. He stated, and he hired me, that if I did not give up on trying to locate your sister, I would always have a place under this roof to work for. You see, through folly of my own, I was in tremendous debt. That case was my way out, and I failed your family. I've been trying to make up for it by helping raise you. And recently, I reached out to an old friend. to help me reopen a cold case. And she was arrested tonight. Adrius, I fear she got too close to the answer. We don't have a lot of time. I need to go represent her, and I need you to be on this case. I'm sorry. I did not plan it like this. I never wanted you to touch it. If anything, I was hoping it could be, I don't know, some sort of graduation present, some sort of closure. But perhaps I was training you to help me all along. You see his hands kind of twitch as he almost seems like he's trying to reach out to you. And he just nods. He stands up, and you see his hand go into his pocket, and he brings out a key. And he takes your palm and he places it in your hand. This is the key to my office, to my study. You know all my tips and tricks. The case files are in there. I wish I could give it to you a download right now. I cannot do that. I need to go help out Scarlet. I will let you know if I'm able to get a hold of her, if I'm able to find out what she knew. But in the meantime, her most recent field notes that she had gotten to me but a week ago are there. We were supposed to meet tomorrow morning. Follow her trail, and perhaps it will lead you to prom, or whoever she was trying to hint, but clearly she was trying to point you back to me. That's all I can think about. And he looks at the rest of you and he goes, I have my inklings of why your sister went missing, but I dare not speak them aloud. And he lets go of your hand. You'll find your way out? Yes. He looks at the rest of you and he goes, what a horrible host I am, leaving you all here. But I fear I am needed elsewhere. You as well. Please keep each other safe. I will return when I can. And with that, Dreyfus stands up, kind of fidgets his clothes, walks to the door, kind of looks back at you all, and takes his leave of the manor. And with the key in hand to Dreyfus's quarters or his office or his study. Um, and a mystery set before you all about what was Scarlet looking into, what did she get too close to. We're going to go ahead and end tonight's session there. um all right. Welcome to the Eindervale estate, everybody. Let's go ahead. We can do it was mostly a lot of talking, a lot of setting up, but we can still do stars and wishes. It totally was one of those moments where I was like, I wonder if anyone's gonna actually like pick up or be able to do that, because I will do that. There will be creatures that will follow you guys. So it's always good to be aware of your surroundings. So good job, Alex. Especially one that stood for so long. The webs we are weaving. Anyone else? I will warn you. There are going to be many threads that will be entering the story that your characters will need to decide which ones to pull on. And just like, it's not like consequences, but if you don't pull out a certain thread and that goes to the side, because there will be timing, where you can only pull on a couple certain, other ones will have to shake out on their own, and they will affect the world in different ways. So I'm very curious as to which threads your character will ultimately chase down as the world continues to evolve before you. Nice. And we're only 4 sessions in, bitches. Wait, 4 sessions? 3 sessions in, bitches. All right. Jinx. Alex, I know I just set this up. It was mostly a talkie world building session. You can keep your inspiration. And we can award inspiration out to another person if we wish. If anyone wants to volunteer, anyone. Hell yeah. All right. Adrius, go ahead, mark yourself down for inspiration. And we will pick back up next week with your folks still within the Einderville estate. At least there is his father, Aberforth, within some room upstairs. Dreyfus has already made his exit. The picture the picture on the landing page isn't like one to one what the map is, just so you know. It's more the aesthetic, if anything. But put your little investigative hats on as we go into the next session. And I also do want to note, like, while we're kind of starting out with like an Adrius themed adventure, just know there's going to be balance throughout. So it's like, yes, the spotlight is currently on Adrius. It kind of naturally happened because he's a city boy, all that kind of stuff. But there will be other things coming into play for other characters. Do not worry. I think with that in mind, homework, because I don't want to forget to do that. What is your character's favorite season and why? That is going to... All right, let me write the aggressor first. Hold on. Let me write it in the thing first. Right there. What's your character's favorite season? And why? All right. With that, any other questions for me before we close this out? I did, yes. Define things that I have. Oh. That is a setting within your browser, potentially. I would say I can do it after the session unless it's super needed. Just because it's a lot of juggling. Okay. How about this? I'll create a post within the roll caller forum of like random or like session handouts or something like that you can go back and refer to. Does that work okay? Because I'd like to keep the general chat clear. I'd like, and the voice chat has like the bot going, so it'll get lost in it, but at least that way it's all... Oh, duh, I'll do that. I'm dumb. Wait, do I have that? Heroes Hall, Adonvis, Quilani. Well, that Adonvis, so the resources for Adonvis and Quilani are like about the world and stuff. Roll caller forum is specifically about the session itself. Oh my god, you're so right. That's exactly what I... Thank you, creature, for pointing that out. I see that now. Yes, I will do that. And I will go ahead and plop a bunch of different random things in there for you so you can see it. Well, if that is it, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for playing, everybody. What I usually tell my players is like, just me exiting doesn't mean you have to exit. I'm going to go ahead and exit, but don't feel like that means you have to leave the voice chat too, because you all can like talk to each other and bond and all that kind of stuff. And I'll see you next time. Okay? Bye. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this session here. Thanks so much for tuning in this Tuesday night. Hope you're having a good Tuesday. Hope you're having a good fall. Please remember to be kind to yourself, drink water, and I'll see you folks next week. Or probably, honestly, if you want to tune back in, I'm going to be probably flying into Mist Hollows here. So if that's something that's your jam, I'll see you over there shortly. Good night.